The crystal wine glass slipped from Victoria Sterling's manicured fingers, shattering against the marble floor of her dining room. But she didn't notice the mess. She didn't hear her husband's startled gasp or her son's concerned voice asking if she was okay. All she could see was the necklace hanging delicately around the young woman's throat, a silver infinity symbol with 3 tiny diamonds catching the light from the chandelier above. It was impossible. Absolutely impossible. "Mom, are you all right?" 20-year-old Marcus Sterling rushed to his mother's side, but Victoria couldn't move. She stood frozen, her face drained of all color, staring at the beautiful black girl her son had just introduced as his girlfriend. "Mrs. Sterling?" The girl's voice was soft, concerned. "Should I get you some water?" Victoria's breath caught. Even her voice was familiar. The same melodic tone, the same gentle inflection she remembered from 19 years ago, from the night she'd made the most devastating decision of her life. I'm fine," Victoria managed, though her voice cracked on the words. She bent down mechanically to gather the larger pieces of glass, her hands trembling so violently she could barely hold them. "Here, let me help," the girl said, kneeling beside her. As she leaned forward, the necklace swung closer to Victoria's face, and she could see the tiny inscription etched along the infinity symbol. Always and forever, V. The room began to spin. Victoria gripped the edge of the dining table, fighting to stay conscious. She knew that necklace because she had commissioned it herself. She had worn it every day for months, touching it whenever she needed strength. And on one rainy April night in 2005, she had placed it around the neck of a newborn baby before walking away forever. "Sweetheart, why don't you sit down?" her husband William said, his brow furrowed with concern. "You look pale." Victoria allowed herself to be guided to her chair, but her eyes never left the girl. She was stunning. Caramel skin, intelligent dark eyes, and a smile that could light up any room. She looked to be about 19, maybe 20. Exactly the right age. "Mom, Dad, this is Zara," Marcus said, his face glowing with pride. "Zara Williams. She's a pre-med student at Northwestern, top of her class." Zara smiled shyly. "Thank you for having me for dinner, Mr. and Mrs. Sterling. Marcus has told me so much about you. Williams." The adoptive name Victoria had never known. She forced herself to smile, though it felt like her face might crack. It's lovely to meet you, dear. That's a beautiful necklace you're wearing." Zara's hand instinctively went to her throat. "Oh, thank you. It's actually the only thing I have from my birth mother. I was adopted as a baby, and this was with me at the hospital." The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. She gripped the arms of her chair so tightly her knuckles turned white. William was staring at her now, his expression shifting from concern to something closer to alarm. He knew. After 25 years of marriage, he could read every expression on her face, and right now she knew she looked like she'd seen a ghost, which in a way she had. "You were adopted?" William asked carefully, and Victoria could hear the slight tremor in his voice. He was thinking the same thing she was, calculating dates, remembering the secret that had nearly destroyed their marriage before it began. Zara nodded. "When I was 3 days old, the Sterling family. No relation to you, I assume. They were wonderful parents. They passed away in a car accident 2 years ago." Her voice grew soft with grief. "I'm working my way through medical school now. That's actually how I met Marcus. He was volunteering at the free clinic where I work part-time." Victoria's heart clenched. Her daughter, because she was becoming more certain by the minute that this was her daughter, had lost her adoptive parents, had been working to pay for medical school, had been struggling alone while Victoria lived in luxury just miles away. "I'm so sorry for your loss," Victoria whispered, and she meant it more than any words she'd ever spoken. "Thank you," Zara said simply. "They taught me that family isn't just about blood, it's about the people who choose to love you." The irony of those words twisted like a knife in Victoria's chest. She had chosen not to love this beautiful, intelligent young woman. She had chosen fear and shame and her parents' approval over her own child. Marcus reached over and took Zara's hand. "She's incredible, Mom." She's studying to be a pediatric oncologist. She wants to help kids with cancer. That's wonderful, Victoria managed. She watched as Marcus smiled at Zara, saw the love shining in his eyes, and felt sick. Her son was in love with his half-sister, and he had no idea. Marcus tells me you're involved in several children's charities, Zara said, turning to Victoria. That's so admirable. I'd love to hear about your work. Victoria nearly laughed at the cruel irony. She spent millions of dollars every year helping other people's children while her own daughter had grown up without her. Yes, we support several organizations. Education, mostly. Healthcare. That's amazing. I actually applied for one of your scholarships last year, the Sterling Foundation Merit Award. I didn't get it, but it was an honor just to be considered. Victoria's breath caught. She remembered that scholarship program. She personally reviewed every application. Had she read Zara's? Had she unknowingly rejected her own daughter's plea for help? What's your last name again, dear? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Williams. Zara Williams. Victoria's mind raced. Williams. And then she remembered. A beautifully written essay about overcoming adversity. A young black woman from the South Side who had lost her parents and was working 3 jobs to pay for school. Victoria had been moved by the application, had wanted to approve it, but her board had concerns about optics, about giving scholarships to students from certain backgrounds. Victoria had been outvoted, and the scholarship had gone to a well-connected white boy whose father played golf with one of the board members. She was going to be sick. Excuse me, Victoria said abruptly, pushing back from the table. I need to check on dessert. She practically ran to the kitchen, her heels clicking frantically on the marble floors. Once there, she gripped the granite counter and tried to breathe. This couldn't be happening. After 19 years of pushing down the guilt, the grief, the endless what-ifs, her past had literally walked through her front door on the arm of her son. The kitchen door swung open behind her. Victoria? William's voice was tight with worry. What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost. Victoria turned to face her husband, tears streaming down her cheeks. Will, she whispered. I think that girl might be... Jesus, William breathed, sinking into one of the kitchen chairs. You think she's the baby? From before we met? Victoria nodded, unable to speak. William knew about her pregnancy, about the decision she'd made. It was the secret that had almost ended their relationship when she'd finally told him 3 years into their marriage. But they'd worked through it, and over the years, it had become something they rarely discussed. A painful chapter that was closed. Except it wasn't closed. It was sitting in their dining room, holding their son's hand. The necklace, Victoria whispered. It's the one I left with her. The infinity symbol with 3 diamonds. I had it engraved. William ran his hands through his silver hair. Okay, let's think about this. Even if she's your biological daughter, that doesn't necessarily mean... Marcus doesn't know, right? About the pregnancy. Of course not. Victoria's voice came out sharper than she intended. You're the only person who knows. My parents died thinking I'd never had children before Marcus. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation settling over them like a suffocating blanket. We have to tell them, William said finally. We can't let them. They're in love, Victoria. We can't let them continue this relationship not knowing. Victoria felt like she might faint. Tell them what? That I gave away my daughter 19 years ago? That Marcus is in love with his half-sister? That I've been living a lie for 2 decades? We don't have a choice. There has to be another way. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe it's not the same necklace. But even as she said it, Victoria knew she was grasping at straws. Everything fit too perfectly. The age, the adoption story, the necklace, even the timing. Zara had been adopted 3 days after birth, which meant she was born around April 15th, 2005. Victoria remembered the date because it was seared into her memory forever. "We need to be sure," William said. "Before we say anything, we need to be absolutely certain." Victoria nodded, wiping her tears with a kitchen towel. "You're right. Maybe I can ask her some questions, find out more details about her birth." They returned to the dining room, where Marcus and Zara were deep in conversation about medical school. Victoria tried to compose herself, but she could feel William's eyes on her, watching her every move. "I hope you don't mind me asking," Victoria said, settling back into her chair. "But do you know anything about your birth circumstances? Sometimes adoption records have some information." Zara's expression grew thoughtful. "Actually, I do know a little. My adoptive parents were very open about my adoption. They told me I was born at Northwestern Memorial Hospital on April 15th, 2005. My birth mother was young, I think, unmarried. The records say she specifically requested that I be placed with a loving family. April 15th, 2005. Northwestern Memorial Hospital." Victoria's heart stopped beating. That was exactly where and when she'd given birth. There was no doubt now. Have you ever wanted to find your birth mother?" Victoria asked, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Zara considered this. "I used to wonder about her sometimes, especially after my parents died. But I've made my peace with it. She was probably very young and scared. She made sure I went to a good family, and she left me this necklace. In a way, I feel like that was her way of saying she loved me, but couldn't keep me. I respect that." Victoria's eyes filled with tears again. Her daughter was so mature, so understanding, so much better than Victoria deserved. "That's a very mature way to look at it," William said softly. "Besides," Zara continued, "I have Marcus now. And his family." She smiled at Victoria. "I hope you don't mind me saying this, Mrs. Sterling, but you remind me a little of how I always imagined my birth mother might look. You have such kind eyes." Victoria excused herself again, this time making it to the powder room before she completely broke down. She stared at herself in the mirror, seeing her own features reflected in Zara's face for the first time. The shape of her eyes, the curve of her smile, even the way she held her head when she was thinking. How had she not seen it immediately? Because she'd trained herself not to look. For 19 years, she'd avoided looking at young black women around Zara's age because it hurt too much to wonder. She'd built walls around that part of her heart and locked it away so tightly that she'd missed her own daughter sitting at her dinner table. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Mrs. Sterling, are you okay?" It was Zara's voice. Victoria quickly wiped her face and opened the door. Zara stood there, concern written across her beautiful features. "I'm fine, dear. Just a headache." "Maybe I should go," Zara said. "I don't want to impose if you're not feeling well." "No," Victoria said too quickly. "Please, stay. Finish dinner. I'm just going to go lie down for a few minutes." Zara nodded, but Victoria could see the hurt in her eyes. She thought Victoria didn't like her. Thought she was being dismissed because of her race, maybe, or her background. If only she knew the truth. Victoria spent the next hour in her bedroom, pacing and crying and trying to figure out what to do. She could hear voices and laughter from downstairs, Marcus and Zara enjoying themselves, completely oblivious to the bomb that was about to go off in their lives. Finally, she heard the front door close and Marcus's footsteps on the stairs. She met him in the hallway. "How was the rest of dinner?" she asked. Marcus's face was troubled. "Mom, did you not like Zara? Because she kept asking if she'd done something wrong. She thinks you don't approve of her." Victoria's heart broke a little more. "Oh, Marcus, it's not that at all. She's lovely, really. Then what's wrong? You've been acting strange all evening." Victoria looked at her son, this beautiful boy she'd raised and loved and been so proud of, and realized she was about to shatter his world. "Marcus, I need to tell you something about my past, before I married your father." And she did. She told him everything. about the pregnancy when she was 21, about her parents' threats and ultimatums, about the adoption, about the necklace. She watched his face go through a dozen emotions: confusion, shock, hurt, anger, and finally, a kind of numb disbelief. "You're saying that Zara might be my half-sister," he said when she finished. "I think she is, sweetheart. I'm almost certain." Marcus sank into a chair, his head in his hands. "This can't be happening. This can't be real." "I'm so sorry," Victoria whispered. "I'm sorry I never told you. I'm sorry I gave her away. I'm sorry for all of it. Does she know? Have you told her?" "Not yet. I wanted to tell you first." Marcus was quiet for a long time. When he finally looked up, his eyes were red but determined. "We have to tell her. She deserves to know." "I know, but Marcus, I need you to understand something. When I gave her away, it wasn't because I didn't love her. It was because I was scared and young and I thought I was doing what was best. My parents convinced me that I couldn't give her the life she deserved." "But you could have," Marcus said, his voice hollow. "We've never wanted for anything. You could have given her the same life you gave me. I know that now, but I was 21 and terrified. I made the wrong choice, and I've regretted it every day since." The next morning, Victoria called Zara and asked her to meet for coffee. She chose a quiet cafe far from their usual haunts, somewhere they could talk without being interrupted. Zara arrived looking beautiful but tired. She'd probably been up all night wondering what she'd done wrong at dinner. "Thank you for meeting me," Victoria said, her hands shaking as she reached for her coffee cup. "Of course. Is everything okay? You seemed upset last night." Victoria took a deep breath. This was the moment she'd been dreading for 19 years. "Zara, I need to tell you something. It's going to be shocking, and I need you to prepare yourself." Zara's eyes widened, but she nodded. "That necklace you're wearing," Victoria began. "I recognize it because I had it made in 2005. I wore it every day while I was pregnant with a baby girl. And when she was born, I put it around her neck before I gave her up for adoption." The color drained from Zara's face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I think I'm your birth mother." The silence that followed was deafening. Zara stared at Victoria, her eyes filling with tears, her hand instinctively going to the necklace at her throat. "That's impossible," she whispered. "I was 21, unmarried. My parents threatened to disown me if I kept the baby. I was scared and alone, and I thought I was doing the right thing by giving you to a family who could take care of you properly." Zara stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You're lying. This is some sick joke." "I'm not lying," Victoria said, tears streaming down her face. "I know it's a shock. I know it seems impossible. But look at me, Zara. Really look at me. Don't you see the resemblance?" Zara stared at Victoria for a long moment, and Victoria could see the exact moment when recognition dawned in her daughter's eyes. The moment when she saw what Victoria had seen the night before, the same eyes, the same smile, the same expressions. "Oh my God," Zara breathed. "Oh my God, it's true." She sank back into her chair, shaking. "But that means Marcus is your half-brother." "Yes." Zara put her head in her hands and sobbed. Great, wrenching sobs that tore at Victoria's heart. She wanted to comfort her, to hold her, but she didn't know if she had the right. This beautiful, strong young woman was her daughter, but she was also a stranger. "I'm so sorry," Victoria whispered. "I'm sorry I gave you away. I'm sorry I never looked for you. I'm sorry you lost your parents and struggled alone while I was living in luxury. I'm sorry for all of it." "Does Marcus know?" Zara asked through her tears. "I told him last night." "How is he handling it?" Victoria's heart broke at the concern in Zara's voice. Even in her own shock and pain, she was worried about Marcus. "He's devastated, but he wants to do the right thing. He wants to tell you the truth himself." They sat in silence for several minutes, both crying, both trying to process the magnitude of what had just been revealed. "I don't understand," Zara said finally. "Why now? Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I can't let you and Marcus continue your relationship not knowing the truth. And because seeing you last night, meeting the incredible woman you've become, I realized what a terrible mistake I made 19 years ago. You're telling me to stop seeing the man I love because we're related. I'm telling you the truth and letting you make your own decisions. Zara was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the busy Chicago street. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I need time. I need to think. Of course, take all the time you need. And I need to talk to Marcus. He's waiting for your call. Zara stood to leave, then turned back. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you regret it? Giving me away? Victoria didn't hesitate. Every single day. It was the biggest mistake of my life, and there hasn't been a day that's gone by that I haven't thought about you and wondered if you were okay. Name them. I want full control over the program. I want to choose who gets help and how. And I want it to be called the Williams Family Foundation, after my adoptive parents. Victoria smiled through her tears. Done. And, Zara continued, I want to work with you, not for you, with you, as equals. I'd be honored. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly. It wasn't the instant mother-daughter bond Victoria had secretly hoped for. But it was a beginning, a way for them to build something meaningful together while Zara decided whether she could ever see Victoria as more than the woman who gave her away. Over the next year, they worked side by side, building the Williams Family Foundation into something incredible. They helped dozens of young people get through college, find jobs, access healthcare. Zara was a natural leader, brilliant and compassionate and determined. Victoria watched her daughter with pride and heartbreak, seeing glimpses of the relationship they might have had if things had been different. Marcus adjusted slowly to having Zara as a sister instead of a girlfriend. It was awkward and painful, but he genuinely cared about her, and eventually they found their way to a friendship that worked for both of them. On a sunny afternoon in May, exactly 2 years after that first disastrous dinner, Victoria was in her garden when Zara appeared at the gate. Hi, Zara said simply. Hi yourself. You look good. Zara had just graduated from medical school with highest honors. She'd been accepted into a prestigious pediatric oncology residency program. She was accomplishing everything Victoria had always known she was capable of. I've been thinking, Zara said, settling onto the bench beside Victoria, about everything, about you, about us. Victoria waited, holding her breath. I'm not ready to call you Mom, Zara said. I may never be ready for that, but I think I'm ready to call you family. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. That's more than I deserve. Maybe, but it's what I'm offering. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set over the Chicago skyline. Two women who had lost each other for 19 years, trying to figure out how to find their way back. Can I tell you something? Zara said eventually. Of course. I used to imagine what my birth mother looked like, what she was like. I always pictured someone kind, but sad. Someone who loved me but couldn't keep me. I was right, wasn't I? Victoria nodded, unable to speak. I'm glad it was you, Zara said quietly. I'm glad my birth mother turned out to be someone who spends her life helping kids. Someone who raised Marcus to be the kind of man who volunteers at free clinics. I'm glad you're not perfect, because perfect people don't understand struggle. And I'm glad you're sorry, because that means you cared. I love you, Victoria whispered. I've loved you every day since the moment you were born. I know, Zara said. I'm starting to understand that now. As the stars came out over Chicago, mother and daughter sat together, not quite ready to embrace the past, but finally willing to build a future. The Williams Family Foundation would help thousands of kids over the years, but its most important achievement was bringing two broken hearts together and helping them heal. Sometimes the most powerful love stories aren't about romance at all. They're about family, the one you're born into, the one you choose, and the one you fight to rebuild after it's been shattered. If this story moved you, watch the full video to see how this incredible family found their way back to each other. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about the power of love, forgiveness, and second chances. What would you do if you discovered a secret that could destroy everything you thought you knew about your family? Share your thoughts in the comments below.